Hi, I'm Melissa. I'm 31, and every dawn I wake with a quiet promise and a heavy heart. Today, I want to share with you what it has meant for me to shoulder the weight of family duty, a duty that for years meant faithfully paying my parents' mortgage while silently hoping that love and loyalty would be enough to mend all that was slowly breaking away. The morning light creeps into my small, worn kitchen as I set a kettle on the stove. I move through my routine with a mix of reverence and resignation, the careful measure of coffee grounds, the listen of the kettle's whistle, the steady tick of the clock echoing the slow progress of my sacrifices. Each action is a meditation, a reminder of the countless mornings I devoted not just to fueling my body, but to sustaining a dream of keeping our family home secure. The aroma of freshly brewed coffee mingles with the bittersweet taste of memories, of promises made in hushed tones over dinner tables, and the silent agreement that my contribution was both my gift and my chain. In those quiet moments, the house speaks to me in subtle hints. The faded family portrait on the hallway wall, the creak of the wooden stairs, even the soft hum of the refrigerator all echo a narrative of duty and unspoken tension. There is an undercurrent of expectation in every corner, a weight of responsibility that feels simultaneously noble and crushing. I once believed that by sacrificing my comfort and savings to secure this home, I was laying the foundation for our future, a future where love would always triumph over hardship. Yet, beneath the surface of this seemingly noble commitment, I sensed that something wasn't right. There were silences too deep to fill, and promises that began to look more like burdens than bonds. Every sip of coffee, every gentle tap on the counter became a silent soliloquy of hope and regret. I would confess to the empty room, I did this because I believed in us, in the strength of family. But the mirror on the wall, reflecting my tired smile, knew the truth, that some promises, however heartfelt, can be a false beacon if they are built on uneven ground. In that delicate balance between fulfillment and sacrifice, I started to wonder if perhaps I was paying not just for a mortgage, but for an ideal, a family unity that over time began to fray. Today, as the first rays of the day warm these old walls, I find myself standing at the crossroads of gratitude and growing disillusionment. The routine I once embraced now reminds me of the cost of keeping promises without questioning them. And so, this is my confession. A journey that began with quiet routine and steadfast duty now finds me questioning what true family really means. What started as an act of love has grown into a heavy reminder of promises that may have been as fragile as they were fervent. The dinner table is set with an elegance that masks the discord beneath. Melissa finds herself surrounded by her family at a long, polished table where every dish is meticulously placed, a spread that, to an outsider, speaks to unity and shared history. The gentle clamor of silverware and soft laughter fills the room, yet beneath the surface, there's an undercurrent of unspoken tension. As she sits down, Melissa's mind drifts back to earlier family gatherings, recalling vibrant, almost magical moments from her childhood. She remembers her mother's soft promises over candlelit dinners, whispers that everything would always be all right, and that each sacrifice was an investment in the family's legacy. In those tender flashbacks, the table was a symbol of hope, a place where dreams were shared and support was unwavering. Yet, even in these recollections, subtle signs of deceit were present, furtive glances exchanged between relatives, a hesitation in responses that later would seem like carefully concealed resentment. At this particular dinner, the illusion of harmony feels too crafted to be natural. Her father's smile doesn't reach his eyes, and her sister's laughter carries an edge, as if it were rehearsed for the benefit of an audience. While conversations meander around the dinner topics, plans for vacations, anecdotes of past family triumphs, Melissa's inner voice is restless. She reflects quietly on the years spent building a secure future for everyone, believing that this collective effort was the bedrock of their unity. But tonight, every carefully arranged moment rings hollow. The pledges of support, so long whispered behind closed doors, seem to evaporate in the presence of a silent agenda. It's as if the warmth at the table is just a veneer covering a history of hidden grievances and unfulfilled promises. In that fleeting moment of internal clarity, Melissa realizes that while the feast before her represents a family bound by tradition and duty, it is also a stage for deception. The smiles and polite chatter are just the surface of a much more complicated narrative, a narrative where every shared dream carries the potential for betrayal. This evening, the harmonious facade begins to crumble, leaving her to wonder if the legacy she believed in was nothing more than an illusion. Melissa's hands trembled as she unfolded the thin sheet of paper, a legal document masquerading as a wedding invitation, yet hiding the most devastating news of all. In its unassuming text lay the final blow. Her family home, the very foundation on which she had built years of sacrifice, was now officially gifted to her sister as a wedding present. The words blurred before her eyes, each syllable echoing the betrayal she had never anticipated. Her heart pounded in a staccato rhythm, a mix of shock and disbelief flooding her senses. What? How could this be? Melissa's voice trembled as she confronted the silence of her once trusted sanctuary. In the recesses of her mind, memories of countless early mornings, quiet, hopeful rituals of paying the mortgage, whispered dreams of preserving the family legacy flashed like ghosts. Every cup of coffee that had steadied her resolve now seemed to mock her with its bitter flavor. The gravity of her efforts, rendered invisible by a decision made without her, left her reeling in a state of raw vulnerability and betrayal. Determined to confront the injustice, Melissa found herself in the well-lit, chilly kitchen where the secret had been revealed. With clenched fists and eyes that burned with unspent tears, she demanded answers. "Mom, Dad, I need to understand. After all these years, after everything I did, how could you decide to give away our home without even talking to me?" Her voice, though quivering, carried a steely edge of indignation. Her father's face, usually etched with paternal concern, was tight with defensiveness. "Melissa, we did what we thought was best for the family," he said slowly, avoiding her gaze. Her mother's eyes, normally soft and reassuring, held a mix of regret and justification as she murmured, "It was a gesture, a gift for her wedding, something to secure her future." The words, meant to allay any accusation, instead stung like venom. Her sister, sitting a few feet away with an unreadable expression, finally spoke in a measured tone. "I'm sorry you feel betrayed, but this isn't personal. It's tradition. You've always been so focused on the details, Melissa. We did what had to be done." Each syllable from her sister felt like another nail in the coffin of Melissa's trust, a betrayal layered over years of silent sacrifice. A heavy silence fell over the room, punctuated by Melissa's ragged breathing. In that charged moment, every unspoken word, every suppressed emotion over the years surged like a tidal wave. If this was about the family, why was I never asked? All those mornings I worked tirelessly to keep our home safe, they meant nothing, she spat out, her voice cracking under the weight of accumulated grief and anger. The tension in the room was palpable, a delicate balance between outrage and sorrow. For Melissa, the betrayal wasn't just in the act itself, it was in the layers of neglect, the dismissal of her loyalty that now screamed in the silence of that confrontation. In that moment of raw confrontation, as accusations hung in the air and the room stood still with charged despair, Melissa realized that the ties of family could be as treacherous as they were binding. Each word exchanged sharpened the pain of the betrayal, setting the stage for the long, arduous journey that lay ahead, a journey to reclaim her voice, her dignity, and ultimately her self-worth. That night, the weight of betrayal pressed in like a relentless storm. The darkness in my tiny apartment mirrored the void that had taken root in my heart. I sat on the edge of my unmade bed, each tear that slipped down my cheek a silent testament to shattered trust and lost dreams. The clock ticked monotonously, marking time in a space where hours felt compressed into endless moments of sorrow. As I stared blankly at the ceiling, memories swirled in my mind, a montage of moments that had built my life, only to crumble in an instant. I recalled the quiet mornings filled with the ritual of paying the mortgage, the hopeful smile I wore as I believed I was preserving our home and securing our future. I remembered the soft hum of everyday life, now distorted into the echo of a promise broken. These flashbacks played like broken film reels, the gentle preparation of coffee, the reassuring clink of utensils during family dinners, the whispered assurances of a united future. Each scene now tainted with a bitter aftertaste. The quiet of the night deepened my isolation, and with it, feelings of inadequacy and anger swelled within me. Every memory was a stark reminder of the love and loyalty I had invested, only to be repaid with silence and betrayal. I felt alone in a world that once promised to be a sanctuary. In the solitude of that lonely hour, each tear felt symbolic, a crystallization of the trust I had believed in and the dreams that crumbled beneath the weight of false promises. Just as despair threatened to consume me entirely, a soft chime of my phone broke through the silence. It was Sarah, a trusted friend whose encouragement had guided me through darker days before. Her calm, resolute voice took hold of the shattered pieces of my heart. "Melissa, I know this hurts more than words can say," she began gently. "But remember, your worth is not defined by a house or by the promises of others. You are more than this pain." Her words were like a fragile light piercing through the shroud of night, a small beacon of hope that reminded me I wasn't utterly alone. Our conversation unfolded slowly, one pause after another, allowing me to voice the raw ache and confusion that had built up. Sarah's steady presence helped me begin to see that, even in the midst of betrayal, there was a pathway out of this darkness, a slow ascent toward reclaiming my self-worth. Each word she spoke nudged me away from total desolation, planting a seed that whispered of eventual healing. The echoes of betrayal reveal themselves in the quiet moments long after the confrontation has ended. For Melissa, every day is now a delicate reckoning with decisions made out of love and sacrifice, choices that have left indelible marks on her relationships, her self-esteem, and her vision for the future. The deep wounds from that shocking day now pulse with the silent accusations of regret, each beat a reminder of promises broken and futures lost. One autumn afternoon, Melissa wandered aimlessly through her old neighborhood, seeking solace in familiarity. Her feet carried her to a small park she once frequented with her family, a place that, on sunlit days, hummed with laughter and dreams of a bright future. Today, however, the park felt like an abandoned stage. There, beneath the sprawling arms of an ancient oak, stood a weathered wooden bench that had always been her sanctuary for reflection. This bench, with its chipped paint and creaky frame, came to symbolize the future she had spent years building, a future that now lay in ruins, scattered like fallen leaves at her feet. Later that day, in the muted light of early dusk, Melissa met with Leela, a confidant whose presence had always been a reliable anchor amid life's storms. They settled onto that same weathered bench, the one that now bore the weight of her lost dreams. In a hushed, trembling voice, Melissa confessed, "I questioned everything I ever believed in, every sacrifice, every promise. Did I build too much on a foundation that was never truly ours?" Leela's eyes, soft with understanding, met hers as she replied, "Sometimes our hearts invest in dreams that aren't meant to last. The legacy you tried to preserve wasn't flawed because of your efforts, it was fragile from the start. What remains, though, is who you are, your strength, your determination, and your capacity to grow from all of this." Their conversation wove through memories of family dinners, fleeting smiles that masked silent resentments, and the long-forgotten conversations where hopes were shared like treasures. Every recollection was laced with a bittersweet irony. The assurances of unity had been the very shroud that concealed the truth of betrayal. Melissa's introspection plunged into the depths of her past, questioning not only the choices she'd made, but also the very nature of loyalty and sacrifice. It seemed that each cherished memory now carried the taint of regret, an echo of what might have been if things had turned out differently. As dusk gave way to night, Melissa clutched a small, delicate locket, a keepsake passed down by her grandmother and long synonymous with security and love. That locket, now slightly tarnished by time, encapsulated the promise of a future filled with hope and belonging. In holding it, Melissa realized that while she could mourn the past, the locket also served as a tangible reminder that she still possessed the power to redefine what her future might be. In the interplay of shadow and light, regret and resilience, she began to understand that even the most profound betrayals could ripple outward into the seeds of transformation. The morning air held a deceptively calm warmth as Melissa prepared to enjoy a quiet moment in her vacation home, a sanctuary that had become her refuge after years of sacrifice. But that calm was shattered when her parents' request arrived like a cold gust of wind through an open window. They wanted to move into the very space she had painstakingly nurtured, insinuating that her vacation home was once again a family asset to be shared. But that calm was shattered when her parents' request arrived like a cold gust of wind through an open window. They wanted to move into the very space she had painstakingly nurtured, insinuating that her vacation home was once again a family asset to be shared. As the words spilled over the phone, a familiar knot of betrayal and anger tightened inside her. This was not a plea for help or an invitation for comfort. It was an unwelcome intrusion into her hard-won independence. Summoning every bit of determination, Melissa invited her parents to her living room, a space that for too long had witnessed unspoken demands and quiet compromises. Standing before them, with the late morning light illuminating the resolute set of her jaw, she steeled herself to speak the truth that had been churning in her heart for years. "I've given more than I ever thought was mine," she began, her voice tight yet unwavering. "You asked to move into my home, into the sanctuary I built for myself, without considering the sacrifices I've made or the pain I've endured. I'm saying no. I am drawing a line here and now." Her words were delivered with a finality that left the room charged with tension. Her father's eyes widened in disbelief, and her mother's lips parted as if to speak a defense that never came. Even her sister sat in stunned silence, her expression a mixture of shock and defiance. Every familiar face now bore the unmistakable mark of astonishment, as though the once entitled figures were trying to reconcile with the fact that the daughter they'd overlooked for years had transformed into a woman who would no longer let old promises chain her to the past. In that charged moment, Melissa felt the full weight of her choice. The room was heavy with the echoes of years when her labor, her trust, and her dreams had been taken for granted. And yet now, with a single resolute no, she reclaimed the narrative of her own life. Her refusal was not just an answer to a request, it was an act of self-preservation, a powerful declaration that her needs and boundaries mattered more than the demands of a family legacy built on deceit. As silence fell over the room, the air crackled with a mix of regret and realization. Melissa's declaration echoed softly in the space between her and her family, a chasm that would take time to bridge, if ever. In that defining moment, she understood that true family was never about blind obedience or sacrifice. It was about respect, mutual care, and above all, honoring one's self-worth. And today, for the first time in her life, she had spoken her truth without fear. Melissa's world had shifted, and in the fragile light of a new dawn, she began the long journey inward. In the weeks after drawing the line, the echoes of past betrayals still whispered through her days, but now she made a deliberate choice to listen to the quiet voice of healing. Every morning became a ritual of self-care, a cup of herbal tea, a few deep breaths by the window, and the steady scratch of a pen on paper in her old journal. With each written word, she acknowledged the pain, the anger, and the glimmers of hope intertwined within her spirit. One crisp autumn afternoon, Melissa sat in a softly lit therapist's office. The room, decorated with serene paintings and gentle melodies, seemed to offer a safe cocoon from the world outside, a world that had once demanded so much of her. As she recounted the turbulent events that led her to this moment, her therapist, Dr. Adams, leaned forward with compassionate intensity. Melissa, healing isn't about erasing the scars. It's about understanding them and embracing your strength despite them, Dr. Adams said. Each session peeled back a layer of raw emotion, revealing not just the wounds of betrayal, but also the resilient core that had carried her all these years. Away from the structured solace of therapy, Melissa wandered into nature, a realm that spoke to her more gently than any conversation. One breezy weekend, she found herself at a quiet nature trail near her neighborhood. The familiar rustle of leaves, the distant call of a bird, and the tactile comfort of earth beneath her feet created a sanctuary unlike any other. In those moments of reflective solitude, every step forward felt like a quiet rebellion against the chains of her past, a promise that her future was not defined by broken promises. It was during one of these solitary walks that Melissa discovered a community group meeting at a local community center. Drawn by a shared desire for healing, she hesitantly stepped into a room filled with others who wore their own scars like badges of survival. Over coffee and soft music, gentle stories unfolded. Tales of betrayal, resilience, and the arduous process of redefining self-worth. When someone recounted their journey out of darkness, Melissa felt an unexpected kinship, as if every word was a whisper that she was not alone in this quest for renewal. That evening, back at home in the quiet of her cherished journal nook, Melissa penned down not just her pain, but also the flickers of connection that began to mend it. The words on the page danced between despair and hope, of memories both heavy and light. In the intersection of individual reflection and shared experiences, she began to see a path emerging from the ruins, a path that promised new beginnings, genuine support, and a reclaimed sense of self. The day had finally come when Melissa could no longer bury the pain of years past. Under a gray, expectant sky, she invited her family to her own home, a place that had quietly borne witness to her secret anguish and the sacrifices that no longer defined her. The living room, bathed in soft afternoon light, became a stage for a final reckoning. Melissa stood in the center of the room, her heart pounding with a mix of apprehension and resolve. The air was so still, it seemed to hold its breath as she began, her voice low but steadily gaining strength. I've carried this load for too long. I've watched every mourning, every sacrifice, every ounce of my hope dissolve into broken promises. Today, I'm done with silence. Silence fell heavily upon the gathering. Her mother's eyes glistened with a mix of regret and defiance. Her father's features tightened with unspoken worry, and her sister sat there, caught between guilt and indifference. For each person in the room, the weight of Melissa's words cut through years of unspoken tension. "Do you even understand what you've taken from me?" Melissa continued, her gaze sweeping over them. "I trusted you to share our struggles, our dreams of a united future, and instead, you made decisions without my voice. That home, the legacy I thought we built together, was never truly a part of me. It was simply another trophy for you." Her voice wavered as painful recollections bubbled up, a montage of quiet mornings spent ensuring the mortgage was paid, evenings filled with promises that were spoken in hushed tones yet never fulfilled, and the weight of a responsibility that had defined her very being until it left her feeling invisible. Each word was a release, a slice through the layers of resentment that had built up over the years. Her father finally spoke, his tone tentative. "Melissa, we believed we were protecting the family's future, making choices for the greater good." "But whose future?" Melissa cut in sharply. "Mine? It seems you valued convenience and tradition over the person who carried every burden, every late night, every sacrifice without complaint." The atmosphere was electric with raw vulnerability and unspent fury. For a moment, all that existed was the sound of pounding hearts and the silent, palpable truth of her testimony. In the charged pause that followed, her eyes filled with tears, not solely of anger, but of a deep, cathartic sorrow. "I'm not here just to condemn you," she admitted, her voice softening with fragile honesty. "I'm here to set myself free. I forgive you, but not for you, for me. I forgive you so I can finally let go of this pain and reclaim who I am." Her confession transformed the room. The tension momentarily released its grip, replaced by a heavy quiet as each family member grappled with the magnitude of her candor. Her sister's eyes, once coolly detached, now shimmered with remorse. Her mother's posture crumbled imperceptibly under the acknowledgement of unhealed wounds, and her father, long stoic, seemed diminished by the stark truth that had been laid bare. In that charged moment of vulnerability, anger and forgiveness met, a cauldron of emotion that offered both a release and a beginning. Melissa's declaration was less a final judgment than a passage towards personal liberation. Her no had evolved from a declaration of defiance into a statement of rebirth. With every raw syllable, she dismantled the ruins of a past defined by betrayal, paving the way for a future where she could finally honor her own worth. As the room settled into a silence weighted with reflection, Melissa stepped back, her heart lighter than it had been in years. The confrontation had not healed every wound, but it had shattered the long-held chains of resentment. In that cathartic exchange, she had not only faced her past, she had reclaimed the reins of her future. The heavy weight of the past began to lift as Melissa stepped out into the gentle light of a new day, a day that promised the freedom to redefine who she was. No longer would she allow old wounds to dictate her future. With each step, she forged a path free from the shadows of betrayal, reclaiming a narrative that was entirely her own. One quiet morning, Melissa set off on a solo journey along the coastal highway. The salty breeze and rhythmic crash of waves against rugged cliffs resonated within her, echoes of liberation. With every mile, the horizon expanded before her, as if inviting her to embrace possibilities previously unimaginable. As the sun climbed higher, its golden rays seemed to brush away the remnants of past sorrows, each ray marking a small victory over the memories that had once defined her. In the solitude of that winding road, the landscape became a canvas upon which she projected her newfound dreams, each curve and vista a symbolic marker of progress. In the weeks that followed, Melissa found a powerful outlet for her transformation in art. She enrolled in a local creative workshop, a safe haven where the interplay of paint, poetry, and song told stories of healing. There, with splashes of bold colors and delicate brushstrokes, she translated the chaos of her past into works of beauty and resilience. Every canvas she completed was an affirmation, a vivid declaration that her pain would no longer be silenced but transformed into something luminous. In one particular piece, she painted a solitary tree standing tall on a windswept hill. Despite the turbulent sky and barren surroundings, its branches reached upward in triumphant defiance, a reflection of her inner strength. Each piece was a conversation with her soul, a reminder that creativity could mend what betrayal had once shattered. Melissa's transformation was further nurtured by the supportive voices of newfound allies and mentors. At a community gathering for survivors of emotional betrayal, she met Elena, a gentle soul whose own journey from heartbreak to self-reclamation had inspired many. Over coffee at a quaint local cafe, Elena shared her story of healing and offered insights into embracing vulnerability as a source of power. Their conversation flowed like a healing balm, each word reinforcing Melissa's resolve that the scars she bore were not marks of weakness, but symbols of survival and rebirth. With Elena's guidance and the warm encouragement of others at the gathering, Melissa began to envision a future where her worth was measured by her resilience rather than by the unfair debts of the past. In quiet moments of reflection, late nights spent journaling beneath the soft glow of a bedside lamp, Melissa chronicled her journey. Page by page, she wove a tapestry of emotions, dreams, and fragments of hope. The simple act of putting pen to paper became a ritual of empowerment, capturing both the pain of yesterday and the promise of tomorrow. Each entry was a testament to a life reclaimed, an ongoing process of peeling back the layers of old identities to reveal the truth of who she truly was. In that intimate dialogue with herself, Melissa realized that her rebirth was not an instantaneous miracle, but a series of deliberate acts of courage, every small decision reaffirming her newfound voice. Now, as she gazed at the horizon from her favorite lookout, a cliffside that had once echoed with her cries of despair, Melissa felt an overwhelming sense of possibility. The landscape before her was as limitless as the future she was beginning to craft. No longer defined by betrayal or stamped by regret, she was at last free. Free to love herself, to embrace her vulnerabilities, and to create a life as vivid and boundless as the morning sky. Standing on the threshold of a newfound dawn, Melissa gazes through the tall windows of her new home, a space that she herself carved out from a lifetime of scars and strength. The room is filled with the gentle glow of early morning, and as soft light spills across freshly painted walls and untouched canvases, she begins a heartfelt monologue, speaking directly into the quiet air as if addressing every soul who has ever felt lost in betrayal. I've learned that true revenge isn't found in the bitterness we hold over those who've wronged us. No, it lies in the reclaiming of ourselves. It's in the power of setting boundaries, embracing our worth, and transforming pain into a radiant, unyielding light. I once allowed betrayal to define me, to dictate the measure of my love and sacrifice. But today, I stand here not as a victim, but as a survivor and a creator of my own destiny. Her words resonate with a deep, vibrant cadence, a synthesis of every lesson learned along a turbulent journey. Melissa recalls the ache of lonely nights, the rigid tension at family tables, the destructive storm of anger and regret that once consumed her. Now, every memory shimmers as a stepping stone towards self-realization. Each act of defiance, every tear shed in solitude, was not a mark of defeat, but a birth of resilience. With a resolute smile, she continues, "Every boundary I set was a promise. I promised myself that my sacrifices would no longer be diminished, that my journey would not be defined by the echoes of betrayal. I choose to illuminate my future with the light of self-worth and unwavering hope, not for revenge, but for renewal." Outside, the horizon erupts in a cascade of colors, a symbolic sunrise that marks a new chapter. The gradient of golden hues melting into soft pastels embodies the possibility of what is yet to come. Each glimmer of light mirrors the strength of her spirit, fragile yet determined, delicate yet unbreakable. The cool breeze carries whispers of encouragement from newfound allies and mentors who once walked similar paths, all reminding her that transformation is a journey best taken together. In that quiet moment, Melissa walks slowly to the back porch, her bare feet kissing the dew-kissed grass, and listens to the symphony of a new day. The promise of this sunrise is not just a celestial promise, but a pledge to herself. It's a reminder that the future is hers to mold, a future where she is the architect of her dreams, the keeper of her self-respect, and the author of her own story. To anyone listening, she declares softly, her voice imbued with both introspection and purpose, remember this. True power comes not from the retribution you seek against those who have hurt you, but from the life you build for yourself in spite of it. Let your heart be your compass, and let each sunrise remind you that every day holds the promise of a new beginning. As the sun climbs higher, bathing the new home in a golden embrace, Melissa's journey of renewal and empowerment is complete in its first chapter. The relentless shadows of the past have finally given way to the luminous certainty that the future is undeniably